Hey, Judy.
Hey, Lisa.
How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. Thanks. Thanks for asking. I won't talk about the weather, but it's beautiful outside.
I'm not getting into this bright light behind me. I am in the process. I have taken some pictures of the different places that I have podcast from,
Uh-huh.
and we are in the process of designing, I guess is the word, a podcast studio for me down the
Oh,
basement, and kind of repurposing a shop, part of Craig's shop downstairs.
uh-huh.
And I'm really looking forward to that getting done because I think it is going to be amazing. And I won't have a big
You can
square of
always
whiteness
rely on the
behind
right
me.
light. Yeah.
Yeah,
Of course, you
exactly.
could also just put a opaque or a transparent shade on that window and it'd do the same thing that you
I
only
could.
used when you were podcasting.
Yeah, I could do that. That's a
Mhm.
possibility in the meantime, I
I've been
suppose.
thinking about doing that on the window that I face because the window that's behind me, I can block it with me.
Right.
But the window that's ahead of me, if it's a really sunny time of the day, and that's something if you folks out there are going to be doing podcasts, you really have to look at how do I look? Because sometimes it's hard to look into a bright light and stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, podcasts mostly are, 99% are audio. So, most people are listening to this anyway. But if you are interested, we also have a YouTube channel that we post these on. And that is at YouTube, Sidetrack Sisters. There's a Sidetrack Sisters YouTube. I don't know. But if I put in YouTube Sidetrack Sisters and go to videos, we're there.
There we are. Oh, I'll have to
There.
start. I haven't watched many of those. I forget about them all the time.
I don't have time. I
No, I
listen to
know.
our podcast sometimes.
There isn't time for all too many books, too many podcasts, too many stories, and so little time, right?
And I like
Too
to
many
listen to other people. So,
too many
and
webinars
actually,
and seminars and
yeah, I have actually listened to one. There was a Julia Cameron was being interviewed by one of my favorite podcasters, Kathy Heller,
oh,
and no, not to diss Kathy Heller. I adore her podcast, but I was unimpressed with the visual of her podcast. So
oh,
I
really?
won't watch it anymore. And I believe she said at one point that not many people watch her. I mean, lots of podcasters will put their podcasts because you have it on
Mhm,
video. We use
mhm,
Zoom as our platform to record, and
mhm,
you don't really have a choice. You record and you get audio and visual. So
mhm.
to not use the visual is a waste of resources.
Sure,
So
because
we
some
put it
people
on
like
there,
that.
but I don't think. I know that most people don't access us there. So if you are one of those people who are watching, thank you.
Hi, here we are.
We're waving for those of you who are only listening. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. And I always say that, don't I? I always segue with that's not what we're talking about today.
Well, that's because it's so common for us to get sidetracked, you know? That's where the name comes from, right?
It does. We are
Yeah.
talking about something not quite so positive. We're talking about negative self talk and how it affects our writing and our lives, really.
Not us.
Yes, us.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
really, what we want to call people's attention to is the negative self talk, that negative inner voice that we all have. We all have it. You can't say you don't. You can't, it's not something that you can achieve, that you can say, oh, it's not a struggle of mine. It is like dust.
Mhm,
Everybody's got dust in their house.
mhm.
And whether you take care of it or you hire somebody to take care of it, it's got to be taken care of.
And
And
it
that's what
depends on if
negative
you have a
self talk.
dog or not, how much you have.
Some people have more, depending upon who lives in your home. Yes. So
Mhm.
those of us with pets, yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah,
could write my name on every table in the living room right now. Mhm.
exactly. So, and, just like dust kind of creates a film, like a fuzziness on top of things, negative self talk does the exact same thing.
Mhm.
It coats our lives with grime. It
Mhm.
coats our thoughts with it just doesn't leave us crisp anymore.
Well, you know, the thing that I always occurs to me and is there are two parts to the mind. One is the conscious mind, and one's
Mhm.
the subconscious mind. And we can consciously say, oh, I'm not going to believe that stuff. But you know what? Your subconscious doesn't know what's true or not. So if you speak in the negative about yourself, your subconscious goes, oh, so she's a moron. Okay, well, we'll act like a moron then. Or, it's so interesting. And I think the study of the subconscious mind is a really new in maybe the last 50 years that people really paid much attention to it. But boy, oh boy, can it mess you up, huh?
I think you're right about that.
Okay, I'm
Yes.
right.
And
Yep.
not only does your subconscious mind listen kind of with open ears and without judgment to what words are going on in your brain,
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I don't think that subconscious knows if you're purposefully doing it or not. Like you said, purposefully doing it or not. Um, I think we also have to be aware of the different kinds of negative thoughts that we're having that
Mm-hmm.
affect that subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, the first one is the words that we say about ourselves. So that's the
Right.
one that you were referring to. So kind of
Yes.
um, like self-inflicted pain,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Well, I think I shared with you that I took a self-assertiveness class
Mm-hmm,
because I wanted to be speaking to people in an assertive way, not in an aggressive way, or worse yet, not in a passive way.
mm-hmm,
And for 6 months, I studied, assertiveness. And I found that was really easy to pick up. It was a snap. And then I signed up for section 2, right? I thought, well, I can do. And section 2 was like a big aha moment for me because it was called The Cognitive Approach to Human Behavior. But the textbook was, let's see if I'll show it and then I'll say it. It was called Talking to Yourself. And the textbook is by Pamela Butler.
okay.
And she also wrote Self Assertion for Women. And it's a really, really, really good book if you're kind of into that passive state or whatever. And her whole philosophy is she says we can learn how to be assertive and just stick to the facts, ma'am, with other people. But the person that is our most difficult to transform into a person who is not just positive but truthful is ourselves.
Hmm. Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
boy, did I have some moments in there where I went, oh, really? And I've reread the book a couple times because I slipped back.
It's so
Um,
easy. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I know. I was telling you earlier that one of our other sidetrack sisters caught me the other day and said, if
Mm-hmm,
you say
mm-hmm,
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry one more time, and I said, oh, she said, if I said that to you,
mm-hmm,
you would have firm words for me. And I said, you're right. You're right. But my circumstances have been such that it's been really easy for me to slip backwards. So I'm not
mm.
saying I'm perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, am I
Well,
not
and
perfect.
like dust, I think it's just one of those things that you never you never conquer the dust, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Or the dog hair.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it just happens and you
Well,
just have to
that's
keep working on it. Um, and if you think you've conquered the dust and you can control your thoughts about yourself, I think the next area will maybe give you some insight that maybe you haven't conquered this area quite as well as you thought you have. And that is, um, how am I thinking about others?
mm-hmm.
Because
What do
I
you say
think,
about other people?
mm,
Even if you only say it to yourself.
mhm, exactly.
And how do you think that affects how they think about us?
Yeah. And I think it not only colors our world, but it affects how we feel
Mm-hmm.
and in turn how we act toward others
Mm-hmm.
and how they act towards us, of
I
course.
think it definitely is something like looking in the mirror. If you're
Hmm.
treating someone in a certain way and it isn't quite the way you'd really like to treat them, and you think, why doesn't Jane like me? Well, do you like Jane? How do you treat her? How does that go for you? Um,
Mhm, mhm.
and what does that have to do with writing? Why do we talk about talking to yourself as part of a writing block or a writing session?
Because the way we think, the way our brains are working is tied to what's going on in our heads. And that the negative self-talk not only affects our writing, but affects our whole lives.
Mhm,
And as we know, we talked about this last week, sometimes it's easy to write when things are going well and we're, feeling good and things
mhm.
are going our way. But when things aren't going our way, when we're having whatever, when the shit hits the fan, or when life happens, or we're having a human experience, yeah, not so much.
Mhm,
Sometimes then we really need, if we don't have that continued habit of dusting our brains,
mhm.
it's going to be, we're setting ourselves up for failure. We're setting ourselves up for writer's block. We're setting ourselves up for having blockages in our lives. And so whether or not you're dealing with writer's block or blocks, keep dusting, keep being aware of those thoughts. And
Well, let's talk about the continuum. Okay, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, oh man, my writing has just really gotten sloppy, and I don't know, maybe I really don't have anything to say. So as I'm sitting and doing my work throughout the day, other things, thinking, oh, I really wanted to get some things down on paper, but I just don't feel like it. It just doesn't feel good to me, and so I don't do it. My actions are that I don't do it, and the consequence of that is I fail myself by not giving myself that outlet and that freedom and that ability to put down on paper the thoughts that are going to help me move forward.
yes, it's like making your bed in the morning
Mhm.
in that case. You
Mhm.
know, there's a great little, I think it was like a West Point um, commencement ceremony
Mhm.
where basically he said, the number one thing you need to do in your life to be successful is make your bed, because you start every day with your first goal being accomplished,
Mhm.
and
You have
that
a
you're setting
success
yourself
to
up for
base your day on.
success.
Mhm.
Mhm. And I
Yep.
think that's what you're talking about right there, Judy, is
Mhm.
that, you know, you get to decide. Do you want to, if you want to write or whatever you want to do, if that is a goal of yours, you've got to keep the machinery moving to accomplish that goal. If that's not your goal, then make that decision, but don't just let it, quiet quit it. Don't let it just dribble off and, let
Well,
yourself
and
down.
don't let it be because you had negative thoughts about yourself and what you write. If you
Mhm,
want to make a conscious choice that I don't choose to write anymore, that's okay.
mhm,
But
mhm.
if that thought is, "Oh, I'm a lousy writer anyway, so what's the problem?" That's a
That's
problem.
different.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
exactly.
So, as I say, we have free will, we have conscious choice, we have all of those things on our little tray of tools that we can use. But
Yes.
the reality of it is, what I find for myself is sometimes when I'm feeling like that, that's when it's really good to do some garbage pages,
Mm-hmm.
kind of get
Hmm.
those thoughts
Yep.
down on paper.
I know what you're
And
talking about. Yep.
I was actually in a seminar one time where it was an outside seminar, and we actually burned them in a campfire, and it was kind of freeing. It was like, oh, get rid of that stuff, you don't need that in your brain, and you don't need it on those papers, so burn it. Now, of course, I was tempted to keep it, you know me, but I
Yes.
burned it. I burned it
Amen.
just like everybody else. So,
I that it traumatizes me. I want to keep those too. Yes. I don't want to throw it in the garbage. I don't want to crumple up in a ball. I don't want to burn it. I want to stick it away for me to be able to have it as a touchstone of where I've been, so that when
well,
I'm not
and to
there anymore,
say, see,
I
this is
can,
how I felt. And sometimes
yeah.
when you slip backwards, like when you're not there anymore,
Mhm.
and then you go on and you have this happen and that happen. And like, I got to tell you, 2023 is going to be a real forgettable one for me. And you start thinking, I've
Mhm.
never had things like this happen before. And, I bet I have. I mean,
Mhm.
not maybe the one thing of the negative. But, you know, as you say, that shit happens. Things happen every day, and they
Yes,
happen to
they
all
do.
of us. And no one is exempt.
No, definitely
Thank
not.
you, Eve.
Whoa, let's go way back to ancient history.
That damned apple. Oh, but then this is not a
Okay.
religious podcast, so
Oh, yes. Okay. So, and then there's a third area that we can really scan our brains for. So, the first two that we've talked about are the self-inflicted pain, the words that we're saying in our brains to ourselves about ourselves,
right.
the words that we're saying um, about things we're thinking about other people. And I always think about road rage in that one. That one is like assuming that somebody is driving in front of you purposefully, slowly, because they're trying to tick you off. It's like,
why would they do that?
yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It could
Yeah.
be a new driver. It could be an old driver. I mean, there are so many different reasons that people drive slow, or people may be driving erratically, or people forget to change, turn their turn signal on. Because guess what? We all do those things sometimes.
Sure.
And just because it happens sometimes. And hopefully nobody behind me assumes that I did it to piss them off. But that's a whole nother conversation, isn't it?
A whole nother kettle of fish.
Yes. So the third thing that I think we need to scan our brains for is our thoughts about other people's thoughts about us. I know that's kind of convoluted, but it's basically, what are we thinking other people think about us? And we've kind of we've touched about on that a little bit in the past, worrying about other people's criticisms or other people's perceptions, other people's critiques of our writing, of our actions, of our lives,
personalities,
of anything about us. I mean, you and I think we are able to do this podcast because we have fun. And our perception is, if you don't like us, don't
turn
listen.
off, change the channel.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. It's doesn't bother me. I'm going to put it out there, and it's going to attract those it's going to attract. And if it doesn't, please don't leave a nasty gram or, a 1-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Just change the channel.
Listen anymore. Just
Exactly.
don't listen anymore.
Yes.
And you know what I find is very often what we think other people think of us isn't true. We make it up in our minds because maybe, what would be an example? Maybe we haven't been as open with them or as friendly to them, or maybe we always see them at the grocery store and we always get a phone call from one of the kids or something like that. And so we don't interact with them like we'd like to. And we think, oh, she doesn't like us, or that person may think I don't like them or whatever. But I think those assumptions can really mess us up.
Well, okay, so I'm going to bring up my current day job, okay? And the personalities that I work with there. There are 3 people that I'm going to call by their names because I'm telling a story in the present, and I don't think they listen to this podcast. Okay? So the 3 people are Marnie and Barry and Norby. Okay. So Marnie is what was her name? Henrietta on
Henrietta.
On the Little House on the Prairie, the shopkeeper's wife. And then there's Barry, and he's kind of jovial. He's tall and skinny, long gray ponytail. And then there is Norby, and he's 81-year-old grandpa. Okay. Kind of an old farmer guy. Anyway, when I first started working there, everybody hated each other. And it was, this person did that, and that person did this. And it was like, what have I gotten myself into here? This is just, these people just, they would be nice to me. And then, but it's like, oh my gosh.
But
it was
didn't
just
you
very
always
frustrating.
wonder what they said behind your back?
Yes. If they're saying this about that person, what are they, and then it did happen where, Marnie would come up to me and she'd say, well, I was told that you did this. And it was like, and so then I'd go to the other person, say, hey, just talk to me, and anyway, now Marnie is gone. And immediately the whole tensions all went down in this place. And I have made a concerted effort to speak kind words and point out positive things to other coworkers about other coworkers.
That's such a strong thing. It takes the toxic environment and turns it into a kind environment. And that's huge.
And guess what? It is amazing how the toxicity has not only nearly evaporated, but it's become a fun place to be. I mean, the people were laughing. We were doing some holiday decorating a couple weeks ago, and we were laughing and carrying on, and it was a great time. But that doesn't mean that it's a perfect place. For example, this is why I wanted to bring it up. Thoughts about other people's thoughts about us. I came in and it just so happened that I walked past Barry and I said, hey, Barry. And he kind of, it was obvious that he had heard me, but he didn't say hi back. And I just kept going. And I thought to myself, that was weird. But I was in a hurry and I was busy. And then I passed him a second time, probably 10 minutes later. And I said, how's it going? And he was like, and he just was he once again, I could tell that he heard me. And my first thought was, did I do something? Did I piss him off? Did I not do something I was supposed to do yesterday? And now he's got to do it. And so he's not happy with me. I mean,
and of course it was all about you.
Yeah.
It had to be something you did, right?
And then all of a sudden it was like this. I was like, why am I making this about me? I mean, he has been the last 24 hours not anywhere near me. He could have brought some crap with him to work from home that I know absolutely nothing about. Yet I'm assuming I am the center of the universe and I am the reason he is apparently in a bad mood right now. I mean, isn't that crazy?
Did you ever find out?
The next day I came in and everything was fine. There was no
animosity.
There was no problem. There was nothing, no issues we needed to take care of. And we moved on and it was fine.
That's something you could have just completely imploded because of this feeling that Barry hates me. He doesn't like me anyway, kind of thing. And I think that was probably one of my greatest life lessons. Was I had a therapist years back when I was going through a divorce, and he said to me in no uncertain terms, and who died and made you the center of the universe? And I went, excuse me? And he said it again. And I said, well, what makes you think I think I'm the center of the universe? And he said, well, everything bad that happens to you is your fault, or anything bad that happens to anybody else is something you caused. So, what would that make you think? And I went, oh, yeah. So, I mean, that's a very powerful illusion to break.
Yes. Yeah. And now, that's where writing comes in again. I think sometimes you can have an aha moment right there and then, like I had. But sometimes you really need to get your thoughts down to have access to how your brain is working. Okay? Because we've talked about having quiet time and meditating but
reflecting.
But I think you really sometimes need to set some time apart to put your thoughts down on the page, because if you don't, or if you do write, then you can't avoid those thoughts. They'll
change your verbiage. They'll make your writing sound different.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, exactly. You become conscious of them, and once you do become conscious of them, then you have the power to do something about it.
Yep. The first step in change is recognition.
Amen.
Noticing that that's something you're doing and you're like, whoa, I didn't even realize. And
Mhm.
that's where I was telling you today about this quote I read that said, it's a quote by Eckhart Tolle. And he said, the primary cause of unhappiness is never the situation, but your thoughts about it.
Mm. Mhm.
And that can apply in so many ways to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You come into a room and people stop talking. They were talking about me. I wonder what they were saying. I wonder why they're talking about me. I wonder what I did. When in
Mhm.
fact, they were at the end of their discussion and they were
Mhm.
moving on to something else and, step in and join them.
Mhm.
But it's
Mhm.
so easy to think, what were they saying? What and of course I've never done that, but
Of course not.
no. It's so
Yeah.
easy for me to feel I hate to call myself paranoid, but that's a form of paranoia. And yeah,
Well,
and I
and
think
when you're in that situation, I think stopping, and once again, I think once you get into a habit of maybe this doing this in writing, maybe it's easier to do it, on the fly.
mhm,
Um, for example, if you're writing about, a conversation that somebody stopped, and you start recognizing and deciding
uh-huh,
some alternative words to tell
mhm,
yourself in a situation like that, then you can use them. It's almost like a training exercise for real life, right? Um, I'm thinking of a situation that just came to mind. Um, a friend of mine, when her daughter was 3, 4 years old, she said something that kind of blew my mind. Um, we were together and a lady came up and her daughter kind of like stood behind her and acted shy.
mhm.
And the phrase that my friend used, she said, "Oh, she's just working on her bravery."
Oh,
And I thought I had never heard that before. Usually I've heard a mom say, "Oh, Sally, she's so shy," or, "Come on, Sally, come and say hi to, Mrs. Hoffman," or something like that. But this woman said, "Oh, Sally's just working on her bravery."
I
And I
love
thought,
that.
what a great turn of phrase.
Well, there's a
So,
difference because she didn't label her as being shy.
uh-uh,
She labeled her as being a beginner at bravery.
yes,
And that's
yeah,
okay. It's okay to be
yeah.
a beginner in any feeling.
Mhm, mhm.
I love that. That's amazing.
So I wonder what turn of phrase somebody could use if they're working on and what's the word for anti-paranoia?
Confident? I don't know.
Yeah, that works. I am becoming more confident here.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm becoming more confident here.
Mhm.
Yes.
Exactly. Or oops, my confidence just slipped for a minute. Something like that. And
Mhm.
I mean, I'm so transparent that I usually ask, were you
And
talking
that's
about
better
me?
than assuming and
And
letting it
feeling,
bring you
yeah,
down, bring that energy
exactly.
down.
And like if I ever do that with my sidetrack sisters, they're great about saying, "Oh, for heaven's
Stop.
sake, stop it right now. We wouldn't
Yes.
do that." And
Hmm.
that is it's really nice to have that level of support.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
I agree. So
And
so
often it's not their fault. It's the fault of maybe an episode that's happened to you in the past when they weren't the main players. But, people can be kind of cruel, and that
of
could have
course.
happened. But,
Oh, not kind of. People will be. I think cruel people happen in everybody's life.
true.
I can't think of one person who hasn't met or been affected at some time, stage, or place by a cruel person.
Well, and if I
Or a
choose
person acting cruelly.
paranoia,
How does that sound? A person
yeah,
acting cruelly, right?
if I choose paranoia, shame on me. If they choose to be cruel, shame on them. So,
Hmm.
it's one of those things where, again, you can say, oh, they're just being just being unkind. I'm not going to give that any credit. I'm
Yeah.
just going to move on. And if you're a confident person, or if you have begun to be a confident person, that works.
Yeah. You're working on your confidence.
I'm
That's
working
good.
on my confidence every day, every moment, every second.
And I think there's actually, we can get into this another time, but there is actually a ladder. I mean, I've done some studying about talking with people about weight loss,
Mhm.
and there are continuums between, I feel great about myself and, my body sucks,
Mhm.
that you can play around with and really work yourself up the ladder of being able to say positive things in difficult situations instead of
Mhm.
letting yourself focus and use negative self-talk. So maybe we'll get
Well,
into that next time.
maybe, because let's face it, nobody is 100% bad or
No.
negative.
Mm-mm.
And
But we all have negative thoughts that sometimes they start accumulating, and until somebody points them out or until we start looking for them, they can just kind of sit there and, like I said, kind of gum up the works. And then
they
we're wondering
fester.
why we're dealing with writer's block, or, just life is feeling,
Yucky.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it could be because of those negative self-talk, that negative self-talk.
Well, if
So
you have really having problems with that, pick up Pamela Butler's book, Talking to Yourself. It's a good one.
yeah. Or they can also, if they want some interesting thoughts about life and such, they can check out Sidetrack Sisters blog, which we've been
Yes.
having fun writing these days. This week we're going to
Yes.
be writing about our favorite room in our house. That should be
Oh,
kind of fun to read about. Um, and I'm moving forward with the Lisa Hoffman coaching. That's something that if somebody wants to focus, if they are really struggle with negative self-talk and how that's affecting your life, that's something I can help people with. And of course, be on the lookout. Next month, we are going to be opening up the Sidetracked Legacies
legacies.
membership and talking more about that in the future. So
We got a lot of nice, fun things happening.
yeah, yeah, we do.
Yeah,
But
sounds good.
something
But
that people,
today,
we would really appreciate if people would um, comment and rate our podcast on Apple Podcasts. That would be super awesome.
that would be extremely kind and extremely helpful.
Yeah. And
The
then more
more
people
people
will be
would
able to
find
find us.
us.
And we'd like
Yeah,
that.
I
Build
would
up our
like that.
community. Okay.
Yes,
Cool.
definitely.
Okay. With that, Judy, let's wrap things up here.
Wrap it up.
Okay. Love you.
Love you too. I think
Okay.
you're beautiful.
Think you're beautiful.
That's what I
Yes.
think of you.
Okay. Talk later. Bye bye.
Bye.